Coming up on The World Today. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson warns of strong possibility of no trade deal with the EU. EU leaders set 55% target for CO2 emissions cut. Plus, US President-elect Joe Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris named as Time magazine's Person of the Year. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin today in the United Kingdom, where Prime Minister Boris Johnson says there is a strong possibility that the UK will fail to strike a post-Brexit trade deal with the EU. While speaking for the first time since a crunch meeting in Brussels, the Prime Minister says now is the time for firms and people to prepare for a no-deal outcome. Time is running out to reach an agreement before the UK stops following EU trade rules on December 31st.
Just updated cabinet on where we've got to with our friends and partners in the EU, and they agreed very strongly with me that the deal on the table is really not at the moment right for the UK, and I'll tell you why. There's a couple of things at least. The most important is that really just in the last couple of weeks they've brought back the idea of this equivalence between the UK and the EU, which basically means that whatever new laws they brought in, we would have to follow, or else face punishment, sanctions, tariffs, or whatever. And it was put to me that this was kind of a bit like twins, and the UK is one twin, the EU is another, and if the EU decides to have a haircut, then the UK has got to have a haircut or else face punishment, or the EU decides to buy an expensive handbag, if the EU decides to buy an expensive handbag, then the UK has to buy an expensive handbag too, or else face tariffs and punishment. And clearly that's not a sensible way to proceed. It's unlike any other free trade deal. It's a way of keeping the UK kind of locked in the EU's orbit, in their regulatory orbit. And the second thing, obviously, is fisheries, where many years now after people have voted to leave the EU, we wouldn't still have control of our waters, and that's no good. And so the cabinet agreed very strongly that we're really not there yet at all.
Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the positions in trade talks with Britain remain apart, with ensuring a level playing field in the future and agreeing access to UK fishing waters for EU fleets, the key sticking points. She adds that the two sides would decide on Sunday whether they have conditions for an agreement or not.
Positions remain apart on fundamental issues. On the level playing field, we have repeatedly made clear to our UK partners that the principle of fair competition is a precondition to privileged access to the EU market. It is the largest single market in the world, and it is only fair that competitors to our own enterprises face the same conditions on our own market. But this is not to say that we would require the UK to follow us every time we decide to raise our level of ambition, for example, in the environmental field. They would remain free, sovereign, if you wish, to decide what they want to do.
Let's get more on this on UK immigration lawyer, Mr. Dayo Fadino. Mr. Dayo, thank you so much for joining us on the programme.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening. You heard there the UK and the EU both saying that a deal is very unlikely at this stage by Sunday. How are Britons reacting to this warning of a no-trade deal Brexit?
Well, at this moment, I think, apart from the Brits being totally fed up of this, hebbing and, and going all over the place and not actually coming to a straightforward conclusion. I think the whole country is somewhat shocked at this point. This matter has been going on for so many years, and it beggars belief that Boris Johnson and his government have still not been able to conclude on this matter. It's going to be affecting so many people. And why they could not just, compromise on this matter and come to a reasonable deal where it would not be affecting people, it would not be affecting the economy, it would not be affecting the livelihoods and the lives of millions of people and businesses. I can't just understand this very, very particular fact. We should take on board and understand the fact that when Brexit happened about 4.5 years ago, it was a 52 leave, 48% remain, more or less split down the middle, really. And hence the reason why there should have been a very good reason to at least compromise, because the whole country has been, not united on this matter for so many years. And it's, as much as I would truly and really want to have the hope and optimism that something would happen on Sunday, I'm quite pessimistic at this point. Although, optimism in itself is a moral duty that things should, that we at least continue to have hope that things would happen and things would change. But at this point, I'm so gutted actually that this is happening, and it seems the government does not really and really have any clue as to the damage it's going to be doing to the whole country and the whole economy.
But when we take how long, both sides have had to reach a deal, why is it so difficult for the UK to reach an agreement with the EU? And what impact will a no-trade deal have on both parties?
A no trade deal impact would be massive. In fact, the way the whole thing is going at this point, it's so damaging and so reckless of any government, whether the EU or the British government, particularly the British government, to be playing this kind of game. I remember last week, Boris Johnson was describing the whole matter, the whole last try at a deal, that we are throwing the last dice. My God, for God's sake, this is not a game. This is not a game of snakes and ladders, throwing a dice. What this matter is all about would be the livelihood and the lives of millions of people. Tariffs, for instance, if there's a no deal situation on the 31st of December, we would have situations where there will be tariffs, on goods being, supplied to the EU. People would not be able to travel anyhow anymore. You would need to actually have an international passport before you could go to Europe and as a visitor. In the travel insurance will be going up. Food prices. It's even claimed right now. It's predicted right now that well over about 40% tariff will be on most of the foods. That farmers, suppliers need to actually sell to Europe. And there will be scarcity. In the midst of the COVID-19 situation we are facing right now, it's terrible. The COVID-19 situation has even affected the economy so far to a point whereby the economy is, quite down. And for this to be happening, or if it should happen at all on the 31st of December, for this to happen on top of COVID-19 and the effect and the damage COVID-19 has done to this country, honestly, I don't even know how we're going to be coping if this should happen. I pray they could see sense on Sunday and come up with a deal that would at least take us out of the EU, but not in a very damaging and disruptive way.
Yeah, the implications of this are vast, especially, like you mentioned, amid this COVID-19 pandemic. We do hope for a turnaround by Sunday. Mr. Dayo Fadino, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you.
Away from Brexit negotiations, but still in Europe, EU leaders have agreed on a more ambitious goal for cutting greenhouse gases, reducing them by 55% by 2030 rather than 40%. The new target was reached after difficult all-night talks in Brussels. Poland, heavily reliant on coal, won a pledge of EU funding to help it transition to clean energy. The EU Commission will draw up detailed plans for all 27 member states to contribute to the 55% target measured against 1990 CO2 emission levels.
We will reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And today's agreement puts us on a clear path towards climate neutrality in 2050. It gives certainty to investors, to businesses, to public authorities, and to citizens. It future-proofs our union. All EU countries should benefit from the transition with economic growth, a cleaner environment, and healthier citizens. The European Green Deal will be our growth strategy.
In the meantime, Australia says it will achieve its 2030 carbon emissions pledge under the Paris Climate Agreement without counting carbon credits from overachieving on its previous climate targets, marking a sharp change of policy. The country's push to use old carbon credits to count toward future emission targets was a major sticking point at the UN Climate Summit a year ago when big emitters were pushed to take more aggressive action to curb global warming.
Our commitment to the Paris Agreement has never wavered. We've made it. We're reducing emissions through practical clean energy technology, which is also a key part of how our own economy is recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. These two things go together. We're committed to achieving net zero emissions as soon as possible. Today, I can announce that Australia is very confident that we will now achieve our 2030 target without the need to draw on our carryover credits that Australians earned from overachieving on our Kyoto-era commitments. We will extend our 2015 to $21 billion climate finance commitment, and we'll increase that by 50% to $1.5 billion between 2020 and 2025. Now, this includes and builds on the $500 million that we pledged last year for climate and disaster resilience in the Pacific.
UK and Russian scientists are teaming up to trial a combination of the Oxford AstraZeneca and Sputnik V vaccines to see if protection against COVID-19 can be improved. That is, mixing two similar vaccines could lead to a better immune response in people. The trials to be held in Russia will involve over 18s, although it's not clear how many people will be involved. Oxford recently published results showing their jab was safe and effective in trials on people. The researchers are still collecting data on the effectiveness of the vaccine in older age groups while waiting for approval from the UK regulator, the MHRA. Spain's health ministry says the country's coronavirus infection rate has hit its lowest since August, with below 190 cases per 100,000 people over the past 14 days. Well, here's more on this and other stories on our COVID-19 Global Update.
Spain was among the worst-hit European countries during the first wave of infections, with health ministry data showing fatalities approaching 900 per day by the end of March, the first month when the pandemic claimed lives in Spain. But since Spain entered a second state of emergency in October, transmission has dropped sharply. Still in Europe, German Chancellor Angela Merkel says that COVID-19 vaccines will arrive in the European Union's 27 member states at the same time, after EU leaders debated a range of topics at a summit which lasted throughout the night.
We said that it was very important that the delivery of vaccines be coordinated so that they reach every member state at the same time. Whether that will happen within the same hour with 27 member states, that the needle is injected everywhere at the same second, I am not sure. But we want to do this in a very coordinated fashion. and show that everyone has the same kind of access.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says any adverse effects from COVID-19 vaccines is for national authorities to review.
On any adverse reactions in any national jurisdiction, yes, we have heard media reports of those. That is for the national authorities to look at and review. But people should not be too anxious. Remember, there are a number of vaccine candidates coming online at the same time. And some individuals one vaccine may not be suitable for particular individuals, but you may well find another vaccine is.
The World Health Organization says it is reviewing data from phase 3 trials of many COVID-19 vaccine candidates. Finally, Sanofi and Britain's GlaxoSmithKline have announced that they will test their potential COVID-19 vaccine further after clinical trials showed an insufficient immune response in older people, delaying its potential launch until the end of next year. This marks a blow for many governments, including the European Union, the United States, Canada and Britain, which have booked hundreds of millions of doses of the Sanofi GSK shot as they struggle to tame the virus, which has killed more than 1.5 million people worldwide and crushed economies.
To other stories now, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris have been chosen as Time magazine's Person of the Year in 2020. The Democratic pair beat 3 other finalists, frontline healthcare workers and Dr. Anthony Fauci, the racial justice movement, and President Donald Trump, who lost the White House race. Time has been choosing the year's most influential person since 1927. In 2016, Mr. Trump, then also president-elect, received the same recognition from the magazine. In the meantime, democracy in the United States is at a major turning point, with Americans being faced with a health crisis, political upheaval and economic downturn. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird, has more on how Americans are viewing their democracy.
The U.S. is less than 6 weeks away from one of the greatest acts of a democracy, presidential transition of power. This democratic process is being called to question by some Americans, as President Trump has claimed that practices within the 2020 election were fraudulent.
Well, we're going to have to see who the next administration is, because we won in those swing states, and there was terrible things that went on. So we're going to have to see who the next administration is. But whichever the next administration is will really benefit by what we've been able to do with this incredible science, the doctors, and hopefully the next administration will be the Trump administration, because you can't steal hundreds of thousands of votes. You can't have fraud and deception and all of the things that they did and then slightly win a swing state. And you just have to look at the numbers, look at what's been on tape, look at all the corruption, and we'll see. You can't win an election like that. So hopefully the next administration will be the Trump administration.
Legal counsel for Protect Democracy states that the U.S. democracy has been struggling for many years.
I think that the mistrust with the democratic process has actually been decades in the making. It's not anything new. I think the way you get a president like Donald Trump, who has tendencies that tend to be more anti-democratic and very different from anything we've seen from a president, certainly in my lifetime, is because there's already eroding trust in institutions. And I think that what we saw this election cycle is likely to further accelerate that.
The attorney for Protect Democracy further explains that during this turmoil, the U.S. will learn from other countries and that those global democracies watching the U.S. are witnessing the evolution of a democracy. The U.S. democracy is based on democratic principles that experts believe will stay strong and survive. From Washington, Maria Bird, Channel Television News.
Away from the United States, Ghana's opposition NDC presidential candidate, John Mahama, says he will not accept anything short of a declaration of the legitimate results. This comes after the Electoral Commission declared incumbent President Nana Akufo-Addo winner of the election with 51.59% of total votes cast. Mr. Mahama led Ghana between 2012 and 2017. He ran for office again in this month's presidential election, but came a close second with 47.36% of the vote, according to the electoral body.
The sacred verdict of the people must be respected. It must be protected. It has been my pledge throughout my time of service as a representative to the good people of Ghana to do exactly that. And that is why I stand before you tonight, unwilling to accept the fictionalized results of a flawed election. We will not accept anything short of a declaration of the legitimate result.
Well, Joy News TV correspondent Daniel Dadzier gives us more updates on the Ghana election and what Mr. Mahama's next step is likely to be.
Deployed a crack team of senior party officials and lawyers to go to the various regions and contest the results in the High Court. He also mentioned that he's going to employ every legal means to ensure that the presidential vote is also challenged, which means that we are going to expect the Supreme Court's adjudication very soon. The Electoral Commission addressed the specific issues that Mr. Mahama raised as far as the parliamentary elections in the constituencies he had questions in were concerned. And from the explanation given by the direct election, they are confirmed. They are convinced, that there was nothing untoward with the processes that went on at any of the collation centers where the constituency results were confirmed.
Now, Jews in Dubai have celebrated the first day of Hanukkah at the foot of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. This Hanukkah is especially different for Jews in Dubai as it comes months after a normalization deal between the UAE and Israel, which has seen several other Arab countries such as Bahrain, Sudan and Morocco most recently follow suit. Hanukkah, which is also known as the Festival of Light, is celebrated by Jewish people around the world for 8 nights.
Right now, live on the whole world is talking about Morocco and Israel, but no one forgets that the UAE was the leader. UAE started this whole peace process, and everything started here in this great place.
Well, for me, it's incredible. I've been here almost 13 years now. And although I come from a Jewish background, I've never felt so Jewish in the last few months with what's going on. It's an incredible thing, and I'm so proud to be part of it. It's an amazing experience for me.
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shobowale. Have a lovely weekend.